All right, we are in session. It is 2 o'clock on September 2nd, 2020. If you would please rise with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this is a bi-weekly administrative workshop. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I'm just going to give a quick fire report, Mr. Chair, if I may.
All right.
That's all I have for agenda amendments.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, under public comments, we have Mr. Barnes. Morning or afternoon.
Good afternoon. David Barnes. I'd like to reserve most of my comment for after the presentation. But, this is the third time that this county's talked about reorganizing now in 2.5 years. It seems that there's a problem here with having to do this all the time. And I just, I've read through the presentation packet that you're going to discuss in a little while. And, there's a lot of things in here that just really aren't the realm or scope of this commission to even be considering. But the one thing that really stuck out on me was where I read a part where it says that we need to set our egos and politics aside. This is in a document that has the Boyce name in it 16, 18 times. Never mentions Pash, never mentions Gold. If there's an ego issue in this room that needs to be addressed, Commissioner Boyce, I think it's your ego that's the one that really needs to be put into check. You've been a member of this board, you've been a county commissioner for 3 years and 8 months now, but I don't even think for 5 minutes that you've been an actual member of the Board of Commissioners. You've always been a lone wolf and a loose cannon, and the things you do are pretty much self-serving, the greater glorification of Court Boyce. And I don't understand it. I really just don't. And like I said, I'd prefer to save the rest of my comments for after we've heard the presentation. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyce, did you want to give a fire report?
Thank you, yes. We made it through August. We've lost less than 20 acres. We have, though, had 2 fires in the last 18 hours. And lo and behold, the fire this morning was at the bottom of Cape Road. Those folks have been through so much. But as I understand, the Brookings and Harbor Fire Department has got right there to offer structure protection. And one of my friends at CFPA said, hey, we have over-responded to this. And then I went up to Humbug yesterday, and to see the joint effort that everyone was making throughout Southwest Oregon was just a wonderful thing to see. So yeah, we've lost a total of about 20 acres now. We're still going to have to be quite diligent. California has calmed down, and we still need to be pretty vigilant there, but I think we're going to get through this season with, we all have our fingers crossed, with a limited amount of loss. So that's all I have on that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. No further public comments? We are going to move on to projects. I do want to, before we start this, Commissioner Boyce, I see you've got 15 slides up here, and I'm just wondering, as we spoke about in the last meeting, you've only allotted 20 to 30 minutes, and I just don't know how.
I think it would be probably around 15 minutes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
Well,
One question before we get started. We were supposed to get all the information out 24 hours ahead of time. Do we have all, is the whole presentation just 15 pages? Is that correct?
No, it's about 30 now. There are some documents that have been added.
Okay, but we did not get those 24 hours ahead of time.
That's
As-
okay. You
That's
got
okay
today to
with,
I'm hoping we'll have another workshop at the end of this. That would be the best way to proceed, I would think. If there's any interest, if there isn't any interest, then no, we don't need to spend any more time, Commissioner Gold.
So you've added another 15 or 20 documents?
That's correct.
And when did you add those?
Late yesterday afternoon.
I'm just wondering, I'm not trying to be, I'll just point blank ask, is there a reason why we couldn't have gotten a copy of those today so we could look at them?
You know, it's ready to give a presentation now if the board is interested in that. And
I'm interested to see the presentation.
Okay.
I'm just asking why we couldn't have got those additional documents so that we could
because
review
they weren't ready.
Well, you said they were up last night.
Okay, so yeah, I could have sent out another one. If we go through and something makes you uncomfortable,
Okay.
then we can stop the presentation. I want the board to look at, and my hope is, Mr. Chair, that we can build something. Well, your public comment you just heard there was, where are the problems? There's a lot of hard feelings here, and there has been. And I think our job is to dig into that and understand where those hard feelings are coming from and how we can hopefully correct that.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on then.
Thank you. We got a new system here, all the color. The new logo, somebody has said that the county paid for that. No, I paid for it and pretty proud of it. This one here, I'm not sure what those birds represent, but yeah, I'm kind of into fish and trees and rivers, and so that's the basis for that there. So, you know, we started, when this board started, I brought Sid Lyken in before the board, and I think that could have, with his background, 8 years as Lane County Commissioner, 10 years as Springfield Mayor, he could have worked and done some tremendous counseling and consulting for us for about $30,000 a year, and that failed. The first document I'd like to offer board, see, there we go. We'll just go through the maps real quick. Curry County's a special place. Is that too fast or too slow?
No, that's fine. I just was going to, my recall to Sid Lyken, it was $50,000 a year.
No, not so. I hope you're wrong on that. I wouldn't have promoted that. But if you are, then we can research that. He's still available, and that would have saved us a lot of money for the background and what he could have brought to the county. Oh, and this is where I used to live, right there for a lot of years, right there. When you look at what Curry County has, the diversity, I sometimes tell the story of Jedediah Smith, come here 20 years after the Lewis and Clark expedition, found the greatest forests, the greatest watersheds, most rugged part of the entire western United States, most unique, most beautiful. And yes, we even have a few redwoods in Oregon. We lost about 40% of them, maybe a little bit more, the Checobar fire. Kalmiopsis. What more could you say about that? The coast spruce, it's a fascinating tree. They get awfully big too. Of course, we're known for the Wild Rivers coast, and this will make sense, I hope, where I'm going here. Some of the most pristine rivers anywhere in the world, certainly in North America. No, you can beat the Elk River. This guy, he's definitely going against the flow here. Costa River, Port Orford. Miss Plaguey wondered if that was fake photography there. Something symbolic about the Rogue River Bridge that could help our county in just bridge building. The ways that we can look to the future, all that we're dealing with, the special bridge. So, as we move on, I'll go one more here. I'm going to read this because I have added a little bit to it, not much. But I submit in the last 8 years, no county in Oregon has been hit harder than Curry County. Maybe the last 9 years. When it comes to sinkholes, highway collapses, gigantic fires, April floods, for goodness sake, something that's almost unheard of here. And so when we were working last week on the grant writing aspect for Curry County Emergency Vehicle, and not able to pull the board together, I still don't think we have on grant writing to simply say, hey, you know, with what this county's experienced, can we prevail? And how can we prevail? How can we pull together? When you look what's going on in Portland, we have many difficulties to overcome. It will require optimism and realism at the same time. One reality, of the 100 largest American cities, Portland is now dubbed the worst and most dangerous. It's only 305 miles from our border. 100 straight days, 103, whatever it is, of violence, physical assault, looting, arson, and destruction. A lot of people think it's going to come into the rural areas. It's already gone into suburban areas throughout the United States. So how do we prepare? Should we prepare? No, the sky's not falling. We've got to look at where we are and the amount of money we've lost in the last 2 or 3 years, especially in 2018. You know, I'm pretty vocal about that. Very disappointed, very concerned, and I don't want to keep going down that road. Then you add, we've lost the CARES. We still haven't succeeded in getting 34 of the 36 counties essentially have not succeeded in getting their share of the Corona aid relief and economic securities fund as intended, the intent from the federal government. And so we can keep working. We are. And yet, when you add all this together, I feel like we're spending. We recognize some of the people are saying, do nothing, board, except spend. I'm not saying I agree with that. However, I do believe that we've made some bad calls. I want to bring this board together, if there's any possible way, and deal with that, and do a little better analysis. So the BOC office reorganization, cutting costs, exploring, working, finding new revenue sources, I really believe it's doable. I'm going to present something here at the end on the consumption tax. You've shown some interest in that, Mr. Chair. And so, yeah, I just basically want to open up the discussion, the conversations, and bring the people in and identify the issues. There's so much going on nationally. There's so much going on in Oregon. And so it really is going to put a lot of pressure, is putting a lot of pressure on us to have some vision. If we don't, I'm not sure we'll be doing our jobs. And yeah, I think we've wasted time and resources, and I can give you plenty of examples there if you are interested. Look. There we go. So this is a letter, March 10th of 2018. It was signed by 5, but myself had plenty of support to keep John Hitt, put him in as full-time administrator. He was very reasonable. Like all of us, he was imperfect, but he ran a good program. And you know what happened after that with the next administrator we had? We lost thousands of dollars. And so I just wonder how it might have affected county government had the other two commissioners on the previous board just listened to the public officials, the 6, and said, keep him at least for a couple months. We lost on that. To me, it's shocking, and we know what the results were. Not good to ignore the other elected officials. Job descriptions, okay. I need more out of the board. I think you can require more out of me. full-time, working on every possible issue that we can, back to the liaison, the entire responsibility that we've agreed to. Moving forward, to suggest that we don't have issues, to suggest that we can't make amendments, or that all the things that have tried and failed. We tried to do an IGA agreement with the city of Gold Beach the second week I was here. Maybe that would have worked. Maybe we would have saved money. You know, ultimately Gold Beach pulled out of the agreement, but it was specifically to offer administrative support service between Curry County and the city of Gold Beach. So this has been an ongoing issue, and it has been expensive with the retraining. And I think it's pretty obvious that in this 4 years we have not made the right decisions, and we're paying a price. Citizens are paying a price. I don't know where my mouse went here. There we go. So, appointing Council Huddle as the interim Bach office manager. I want the public to know that he's not promoted this, not even slightly in any way. I can say though that the 3 or 4 months between John Hitt and the second administrator we had, the office never ran smooth. He was accessible to everybody. He helped train our new people. Incredibly easy to work with. Obviously his legal background is a benefit to us and the citizens. He cares. He and I have had our issues, and he straightened me out, and I usually had it coming. But he is an incredible resource, and I don't even know if he would accept this position. I think if he had full board support, I believe he would. So I'm looking more and more at contractual services for the county because of the tremendous employment costs that we have to pay. Is that the best case scenario? You had a good argument the other day, Mr. Chair, on one that you felt probably wasn't the best way to go. But these are professional people. They are here early, leave late, and this is going to free up Council Huddle. This is one example of a contracting basis that I think has real good merit for where we are as a small county. I just don't see any downsides to this at all. None. Is this something we should really do full bore? I don't know. Not necessarily. But if there's ways to save money, we got to quit talking about it and actually jump in and do it. Next, come on. So, Staff Jesuit has 4 years under his belt, and is well trained, does a really good job. He's thorough, goes way beyond just his capacity to do good minutes. And so Miranda Plaguey, I think, has been a good resource, good addition to our Bach office. She can take up some of the slack. We've been concerned about projects in limbo when Director Schmelzer leaves. Who's going to do those? I think that's an easy fix. Should be an easy fix. How we doing on time?
Yeah, you're about halfway through.
Thank you. I don't know where. Am I off the page here? There it goes. Okay. So what do we mean by Curry County values? We're a rural area.
Skipped it.
Did I skip one?
You're on 33. How did we get there? It's supposed to be on page 6, I think. It's next. Right there. Yeah, that's the next page in your present. Oh, what it is, all the pictures. That's why. Okay. So the office rebuild is the next slide. Yeah.
I think we're here. Thank you. So I think it's up to this board to determine that top paragraph there, if it would save money, if it would reduce costs, if it would be more efficient. Certainly we can all discuss that. So, you know, I'm pulling for a single position, finance director, director of finance, whatever you want to title it, and not have it be part of the county director of operations. those two positions should not be combined. And so I understand that you feel that that's valid, the board does, but I stand in opposition to that. And I think we just need to go back and focus on what our jobs are. There's four main areas that have my concern, and that's public health, public safety, public education, and public collaboration. And so as we pull our community together, which I think we're compelled and responsible to do, we've seen that there are volunteers out there that want to be involved, that have a lot to contribute, have good backgrounds, would be available. And especially when it comes to healthcare, especially when we're dealing with the coronavirus issue. You know, we have a down economy. We have so many issues that we could and should be working on and focus better on. Public safety, all of you know where I stand on the code enforcement officers. I'm not big on the word enforcement, but I think you'll see the day, you're going to probably need to see the day where we have 3 or 4 people that will be running that program, because we know what the consequences are if we don't. We're talking about blight. We're dealing with that in the absentee property owner situation, where that was the whole basis, the primary basis for understanding these properties and how we can affect change, how we can challenge the property owners to keep their places up and protect their neighbors. So we need to take the lead in all that. When it comes to law enforcement, we know what could very well be coming this way, and what's going on around the country. I think it bears repeating. We have to be ready, and so needless to say, I'm about as law enforcement oriented as I can possibly be, and I think that's the best way to protect our citizens. That's our number one job, protect our citizens. The age of COVID. This is my favorite picture. Yes, it's Houston, but it's connection. It's respect for the police, the public safety professionals. And I think this board is pretty unified in our support for them at all levels. You've talked, Mr. Chair, about one school district. I think that's a good idea. Could be a good idea. I think we just have to pull people in that have a stake and that have a lot to contribute, and we get them involved and interested. The county can evolve into just going into the next decade. And so that also has to do, we're going to have to, encourage us to look at including SWAC, all the schools. And then you get with the people and the volunteers, the people who want to remain living here, and you do your best to lead them and engage them and pull them in. You hear this a lot, these 3 words, and so, yeah, who's going to roll up their sleeves? Getting everyone involved, the strong commitments. Somebody laughed about my Hillary Clinton comment, but you look at it 15, 20 years later and you go, okay, we're a small community. How much of the local control and responsibility are we able to really take charge in? You know where I stand on the NeoGov. I voted against it the other day. Where I stand on OpenGov. And what I've asked for is just simply, can we wait? Can we see what's going to happen through this winter with our economy? Can we see what's going to happen? Something as simple as our timber industry, our restaurants that are struggling, greatly struggling. Some of them won't come back. And so again, looking ahead and having a little vision, this is where we are. Until then, at some point, here's a 9-page document that's actually 9 years old. It's on mandated services from the state, and we may have to compare it to do just that and only that. I hope not. But the more we work towards remedying that and not just inadvertently putting ourselves in that position, the better off we're going to be. The best way to keep our people going is to make those tough calls now so we can keep them all working. Mandated services, essential services, we may be at some point ourselves having the full responsibility of determining what is essential. What are we going to be able to maintain? So it's all here. People wonder about the PERS system. Right now it's $23 billion down in the state of Oregon. We only have 4 million people here. I mean, it's hard to believe, but that's 24,000 million. 24,000 million. And so if we could offer some new people, we'll never get out of PERS for the existing folks that work for us. But if we could offer, and this is a Klamath County program that they have some success, it is legal, and it's good for their employees, and it's going to be stable. I'm not saying that PERS is not going to be there. I just don't know how we can count on it. I hope we can. But if you pooled all of our employees and they had a good, healthy 401k pension plan as opposed to PERS, you know, Commissioner Huxley and I both, but especially he brought this up a couple of times. It is a tremendous drain on the finances of our county. It is a huge amount of money. So if I can show the board through the Klamath program, and it is legal, and I believe it is, it would have to be tailored to our county, of course, and it was only for new people, we can save some money, and I think we could be offering potentially a more stable program. I mean, we got so many bright spots here. We have community development, I think, is just done incredibly well, and the building's up. We got a little boom going. We got a lot of excitement, and so I've been anxious to learn, and am learning, and it's something we can build on and around. When it really comes right down to it, excuse me, we only have 2 places that we can, I think, that are practical to try and get additional funding. And so that's grant writing, and I don't know why we struggled there, but we sure have. I brought it to the board, and you know, Park Resources wasn't necessarily the only option or the only game in town, but good people. And you know, we don't have a grant writer, but we're always behind. And that's a bit painful to me because it doesn't have to be that way. I need support from the board to find that company or that person or those companies and those people, and go compete. And I'm sorry, but I don't think we're doing that. And there's some professional people out there that have tremendous to offer. You know, I don't want to spend, Mr. Chair, too much time on the Portland tragedies, but it has got me looking over my shoulder. You know, I saw something where I just can't believe I saw it, and it was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen, and it's gone nationwide. And again, it's just a little ways north of us here. So. We're going to have to spend more time in Salem. We're going to have to spend more time challenging how we can affect, and so that how we can build bridges in this state. You know, rural isn't better, but it is different, and that's who we are in this little community, this little county. We're 26th largest out of 36, so there's 9 or 10 smaller than us in terms of population. But this is a good example. Yes, I've showed this photo before, but I'm proud of it. It's David Brucksmith has been a tremendous legislator, and the legislator next to him, Karen Power, is she's as far to one side as he is to the other, but they do come together, and so it's an example. Sometimes it's an inspiration. This was a year ago in the summer, but keeping Portland fed. I heard one other commissioner mention that not too long ago, that they need to understand how much responsibility there is for us to feed the whole state, and especially in Eastern Oregon. I love this little guy here. He's not sure if he should be in the picture or not. Back to our medical care and just finding doctors and doing our part there. Always the rural struggle. You've seen some of these pictures. We're going to bring our fair back next year. We've talked about that. No, this is the Pendleton Roundup. It's not the Curry County Rodeo. Maybe it'll be back someday. So back to revenue, grant writing. I mean, to me, it's very obvious, very simple. We just have to have the courage to go get it done, find the right people again. So the big one that's going to take 5 minutes here, Mr. Chair, maybe not quite that much, but there's a variety of plans. I've spent a lot of time on this. You have shown some interest. The biggest advantage we have basically are the Del Norte County shoppers. They're paying almost 10% now. They buy a lot of gas in Brookings. They go to Bi-Mart. They have the Walmart. We have the Bi-Mart, the Fred Meyer, as you know. But it's about 40%. You know, you could spend a lot of time, probably should, in a variety of exemptions. But I think you saw the information that I sent out Monday. And you know, again, there's 100 different plans that you could do. 2% would raise, around $3 million. And the reason I'm able to say that, by the way, this is an ARS I did back in April of 2017, just to have a citizens consumption tax advisory committee. Couldn't get it through the other two commissioners, just to review this process. And I brought it up again in September, same year. And the reason I've mentioned this now is because had we come up with a plan that the voters could have supported, we'd have a lot of money in the bank right now. At 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever. So this has been a real disappointment. Even though it's 3 years ago, it's a real disappointment for me to not even have the committee, the authorization and the encouragement to have that committee go forward. So again, at 3%, this is from the Legislative Revenue Office, Paul Warner. I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Commissioners Edson, Rhodes, and Waddle. They spent a lot of time on this in 2014. So the Revenue Office, Mr. Warner's retired now. He never charged a dime for this, but he saw the advantage we had being in the corner of Oregon and the California shoppers coming over the border, plus the tremendous number of tourists we have here. He took quite an interest for the previous commissioners. This is just a little bit about property taxes, but a lot of people believe that a consumption tax is the fairest tax in that if you do non-labeled foods, when there's additional pressure on us to help the homeless and the poor folks, if they're doing their best to take care of themselves and they buy bananas as opposed to potato chips, then everybody wins. And then, yes, I've been criticized, well, you're going to tax the poor people. Well, the middle class is getting to be poor. So how does that work? You know, it's based on what you consume. 2 cents on every dollar if you went the 2% route. And the best thing about this graph is this shows that the percentages of basically, I hope that equals 100%, I think it does, but 53% Curry County wide, Brookings 30, Gold Beach 11, Orford 6. So that's where the funds would essentially be coming from. Oh, I don't know if you can read this or not. It's what I'm calling the 15-15 plan. I've put quite a bit of, well, no, not that much time, but enough that I think it's worthy of review from the board here. It would require, should require a lot of adjustments, a lot of amendments, but it basically, on the 100% public health, I mean, that's the new game in town, that we are going to be more and more responsible to try and figure out a way to fund. And I'm committed to that. Repay the road fund reserves, another 15%. Public safety, law enforcement, 15%. Let's just say at $3 million, that would be about 450,000, based on, excuse me, be less than that. It'd be right about 350 to 400,000. 15% for visitor and shopper promotion. So that's a lot of money to put into marketing, to keep people coming here, encouraging there. 15%, you could flip those two figures if you preferred, for Curry administration, 7% for the businesses that would be collecting those. There's programs out there that make it relatively simple, as I understand. Economic development and housing, you know, another 300,000 there. Give or take, depends on what percentage you use. Then all of our water systems, except for Gold Beach, but you'd have to be fair there, all of our water systems, Langless, Harbor, all need help. And so I come up with 10%. But again, you could do any form, shape of this you wanted to do. And I can't read the below there, but if we could rate. Anyway, it's on here. It's JJ can send it out to the public, and that's on the assumption the board might have some interest in moving forward. Oh, I know what it is. I'm sorry. On the environmental health fees, I would definitely look at next year, and I'll bring this before the board. The restaurants, give them a year, we split their costs in half, or some amount of money that they could save. We may want to look at the Abbotsty owner property deal. We've got a lot of complaints on that. I just think we need to take a deep breath and see what might be involved there, and if that needs to be amended. A lot of hard feelings out there towards Curry County on the business license fee. You know, they're not big fees, but they're, I know the board is getting a variety of letters and phone calls and complaints, and so we might have misstepped there, I don't know. Back to our strategic plan, how we can maintain or amend that. Is it still relevant? And then when you look at what we have here, in addition to the scenery and our natural resources, the public safety, if we get our financial house in order, the timber industry, healthcare, schools, visitor destination, all the above. They all need help. They all need help. Our ports, certainly. Very unique, special. Keep the timber flowing, good forest management. A lot of very hopeful future economic reasons for optimism. Curry Medical Center in Brookings. Hospital we're all proud of. I better not speak for everybody, but certainly I am. Your famous sign. This is Miranda's favorite. It's working. Our people. Terrific guy. Okay, that's what I have. Thank you very much for the board taking that time today. Really appreciate it.
So what I'd like to do, if there's no objection, is I'd like to start with Commissioner Gold. If you have any comments on the presentation, I'll make some comments on the presentation, and then if Ms. Schmelzer would like to make some comments on the presentation.
Let me just say what I agree with and what I disagree with. I agree as far as grant writing. I don't have a problem with that, but an RFP needs to be sent out so we could have bids on it. So I don't have a problem with that. As far as a 401k for new employees, I don't have a problem with that. I think that would be a good thing. As far as a new director of operations, this board agreed to fill a position that was a financial director / administrator, and I think that would be a good idea. There needs to be continuity by having some sort of an administrator. I don't think commissioners just coming in new or whatever can fully understand everything. We need to trust our department heads. We can't be micromanaging. Had all kinds of comments here. As far as putting the school districts together, let's just say this, it would have to go before the voters as far as districts, special districts working together. Already a number of those districts are working together. For instance, fire districts are working together. Library districts are working together. School districts are working together. As the liaison for education, I've been holding meetings on a quarterly basis with the school administrators, talking about ways we can work together and help each other. So that's being done. OpenGov, I think dumping it at this point is not a good idea. We've spent a lot of money and time and investing as far as training. So at this point in time, I don't think that would be a good idea. I originally voted against it, the only one voting against it, but I feel that once a vote is taken, you need to move forward and do the best with what you can. Increasing revenues, I think it is a mistake to dump the business tax or fees simply because that allowed us to come up with a database for our businesses and get information out to them about loans that they could have for the COVID situation. Had we not done that, we would not have had a database. I think it's very important that we have that. I think because we get a couple of complaints, we can't just change everything midstream. The out-of-town people having to pay a fee on their property so that we can protect it. Dave Fortman presented to us that he had many, many calls, and 90% of those after he talked to them were okay with that. I think that pretty well covers what. Oh, revenues. Let me just say something about revenues. The revenue tax that was put on the advisory, as an advisory question on the ballot, went down by 83%. I think that's not a bad idea, to be honest with you, but it needs to be talked about a lot and come up with some sort of a plan that's not going to hit the poorest among us. So those are my comments.
May I respond, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Thank you. Good news on the 401k. That tells me that additional research would be justified, and I would like to get something to the board on that. As far as micromanaging, I don't see anybody here that's promoting micromanaging our departments. To the contrary, but we do have serious responsibility for oversight, a legal responsibility. As far as the open gov expenditure, you know, I've said my piece on that. I don't think it was a good investment. I'm trying to understand where in the world the money's going to come from. I mean, we don't even have a financial person in the office right now that can tell us exactly where we are. We have audits that are not done. I'm not pointing a finger, but we've had 5 different finance people in 4 years. We've had 3 different county administrators in 3 years or 3.5 or whatever. So there's a lot of upheaval. And when you go back to what the citizens voted on in 2008 and 2014, they said no, overwhelmingly said no, the county administrator. We want full-time commissioners. We want them there every day. The job description showed what we agreed to on last January. And I want to offer you this. Of the 7 counties in this area, we're the only ones except for Jackson County, who is 13 times our size, that has a county administrator. And then we shoot the notion out there that that's who we got to run the county. No, I never agreed to that. I worked harder than anybody to get Director Smelzer here. I worked harder than anybody to work with John Hitt. I worked harder than anybody to work with Clark Schroeder. So Coos County has staff. Douglas County has staff. The commissioners do their job. So I've got David Yamamoto, a good friend, Tillamook County Commissioners, basically saying, how in God's name can you afford $130,000 a year, Director of Operations or County Administrator, whatever you want to call it? Nothing personal. Nothing personal. Please believe me, that's straight from the heart. And he's laughing at us going, how could Curry County do that?
Okay, we're kind of getting off track of the answer.
No, we're not. No, we're not. I need to say my piece, sir, in that I'm outvoted here. I explained to you when I felt the office ran the smoothest and when we were the most productive, when we could look the citizens in the eye and say, by George, here's what we got done. So no other counties have turned their responsibilities over, and there is a notion out there, right or wrong, that we have a county administrator that does our work. My work. That's, and I've got a couple more things on the business tax, but I can wait, thank you.
Commissioner Gold?
I just have one comment. There are other counties, small counties, that have administrators. Jefferson is one. Morrow County is one. I ran on getting a county administrator, so people knew exactly where I was going. So you can't say that everybody voted against it. Charter, yes, they did vote against. County administrator, no.
So are we not going against what the people made it clear they want?
I don't think so.
So I just am going to ask the board, where's the money going to come from? It's that simple. Where's it going to come from? Road fund reserves.
Okay. So I would like to go kind of page by page and just kind of skim over each one of these. I'm not going to comment on the first page because that's your personal comments on Portland. I have my comments on it, but I don't feel this is the time and place for that. I've already made my comments public on Portland. You talk about a director of finance. We hired a director of finance in here, and that was before I was elected. You and I had several meetings on bringing Ms. Schmelzer in as the director of operations for the county, not an administrator, as a director of operations. And you were 100% on board for that. You actually voted to bring Ms. Schmelzer here. And I believe, Commissioner Gold, you voted no.
I voted no.
You and I were you were the dissenting vote to bring Ms. Schmelzer here. Not dissenting, but the approval vote to bring Ms. Schmelzer here, not as an administrator, but as a director of operations. When our finance director left, Ms. Schmelzer said she could handle that position, and I think she's done a very good job at it again, as it's been made very public. She brought to this board a balanced budget this year for the first time in a long time that I can remember. Now, of course, COVID is going to strike that down, but Ms. Schmelzer did bring a balanced budget. Now, I know there was some dollars in there for the sheriff's department from the road fund but it was a much bigger step than this county has had in previous years. So as far as the Director of Finance, I personally, again, if you want to talk about different positions, and this is nothing against our treasurer, I think she's a lovely person and she's been doing what she does very good for a long time. I personally believe a county of this size can merge the treasurer's office and a Director of Finance's office into one position. That would take a vote of the people to do that as well, but I think that that could be one position, because if you are a treasurer, you are sitting in the Director of Finance's office almost weekly, commiserating back and forth on how your finances are going, where you're pulling money from, where money is going into. So those two jobs are very closely tied. If you're looking to possibly save the county some money, to combine those two positions might be something to look at. Again, I'm not completely advocating for it. I'm saying it's an area we could look at. As far as new hires, you talk in here about new hires, and I know Mr. Barnes has made many comments about new hires in the county over the months and years that 2 years that I've been here. Most of the new hires that we brought in were grant funded or funded through different things that didn't come out of the bottom line, the general fund of the county. There are a few that Ms. Schmelzer might be able to exact on that, but I know most of the hires that we brought into the county since I've been here, a lot of them were grant funded. We also need to talk about our strategic plan, because we spent a lot of money to build a strategic plan. We did a lot of work on that, and you even mentioned it later in your presentation here. The strategic plan of the county is what we as a county, not only as this governing body, but as the citizens of this county made public comment on, this is the direction that they wanted to go. So I think if we waffle from the strategic plan of getting away from things that will take the county in any other direction than the strategic plan directs us to go, it should be an automatic no vote from this board. We vowed to protect and preserve the strategic plan of the county, and whatever takes us in a different direction than that, our citizens have voted, and I think we need to honor that. County Council has made it very clear that he did not. He respected and honored you for nominating him to an interim manager, but he's made it very outspoken that he did not choose to do that. And I believe also there are some personal issues with County Council that he may be addressing next year that that might cause him to not want to do that job as well. I also want to say that I know you talk about in here bringing more or the legal help that he's got now would free him up. I know of 2 other litigations that are pending that County Council can't even get to right now because he's swamped. That hopefully by bringing these additional resources into the county, the paralegal and the other attorney to help take the burden off of him, that he will be able to get to later in this year or the beginning of next year. At this time, I won't comment on Mr. Jesuit and Ed being an office manager. I think this is something that, again, this kind of thing can be talked about over time. I don't know that Miss Madison has the time or the energy to do some of the things that Miss Schmelzer does. Again, I want to say, and you can take it for what it's worth, but I want to say that the workload that I've seen Ms. Schmelzer accept without kicking and screaming too much has been enormous. And I'm actually shocked at some of the things that she has just taken on as things have fallen apart in the county. People have left. Our public health situation walked away. She just kind of took it all in stride and kept going. There may be some small things that Miss Madison and Miss Plaguey could take over, but I think their plates are already pretty full. Public health is absolutely front and center. I think that Miss Ward is doing a great job. I'm hopeful. I think she did some interviews the other day, but I'm hopeful to see her get some help because she's calling me at 9 o'clock at night, finally getting to me on a press release of something that's happening. And I've talked to the sheriff, and he said, I don't see my wife anymore. She works from morning until 10 o'clock at night, some nights, and we don't even hardly have a conversation anymore. So to see her get some help would greatly improve, I think, our public health just in that area. I do want to say about the schools, I think in this county this size, I've been very vocal that I think to possibly look at combining our school districts into one, having one superintendent for the entire county might be a good way to look at it. I don't know if that's possible. I don't even know if it's legal. These are just questions that I tried to bring up over the last year or so. And the SWAC campus, I am extremely disappointed in that. That's my personal belief, and I don't believe that they're producing nearly what they could or should be for what they're taking from our taxpayers. As far as, again, living beyond our means, I don't see that we are. We have consolidated so many things. Do I think that PERS could be a 401k? I would love to see that. I think that's an A+, because I don't think there's too many people in this county that really, except for the people that have been here for a long time. Actually, when I got elected, HR asked me if I wanted PERS, and I said no. It's not, to me, it's not a valuable investment. And of course, if you don't get reelected, it's valueless anyway, because I think it's a 6-year minimum on it. But 401ks, those kind of things are very strategic and very wise investment for employees. I'm trying to read through these real quickly as I go. Again, our finance director, I think to have a finance director and slash treasurer and or a finance director slash director of operations is the way to go. It's the most most bang for our buck, because I don't believe that a finance director is a full-time job here. Even if they are at the computer doing some of the entries, the way this new software program, and I know you've spoken against the software program, but the way that OpenGov is going to work, I think it's going to expedite things. I think it's going to do a lot of self-checking. I think it's going to do a lot of things that finance is going to be very pleased about. Not only that, but if the payroll works out as I believe it will, I think it's going to be a huge plus for the county. You know, we talk about why would you say it costs a lot of money, and why would we make that change? Sitting on our room here is the assessor. He just spent a lot of money to change the software program in his office because I'm guessing, hopeful to expedite some of what you do and make your job and the job of the people that work under you easier. That's what I would hope all new software programs are for, is to bring us out of the slow and into the fast lane and help to expedite the jobs that we all do here. As far as improving revenue sources, Commissioner Boyce, I am up for talking about anything. Consumption tax, if it's structured properly, sales tax, if it was structured properly. You know, I've even been outspoken about doing a border toll, which never got very far. But you know, I'm up for talking about anything. You know, I think though the biggest thing for me with this is I think I have to say, for a lot of this, you know, to do too much, I would have to be against it until we can sit down and break each thing out and talk about each thing and get some consensus for it. Again, the strategic plan for this county is the motor that drives us. The taxpayers of this county were queried on what they think is the right thing to do in the direction for this county to go, and I think anything that deviates from that is not a direction that I want to go. So I think right now that's where I stand on your presentation. What I'd like to do in essence, so you don't have to duplicate and everything on talking about different things.
But I want to do what's fresh on my mind, if I may. Thank you. You mentioned the treasurer combined quickly with the finance person. That's an idea. That gives me hope.
A lot of counties do that.
Yes, but they also do what they can afford. And so that is my biggest issue here. I did run that by somebody in another county, and they basically said you can't have one person controlling the money going in and coming out. Now, I think I understand what they mean by that. I wouldn't rule it out, but as you just mentioned, time to have discussions. That's what this whole presentation was for. Nothing in here suggests that even 10% of what I offered are good ideas. But we sit down, we talk, we dialogue, we pull the people in this county. Now, when it comes to the strategic plan, all before COVID, done before COVID. Not to mention the national riots that we have going on in the country. Our country is in a lot of trouble. This is an opportunity for us to respond wisely and prepare. And I think we have the people to do that. When it comes to Miss Madison, you take people and you recruit and you challenge them. I mean, she's got a great brain, so I don't think you're selling her short. I know that wasn't your intent, but we got to work from within what we have. And when it comes to council huddle, part of the reason, you know, I'm going to make a wild guess. I don't want to put him on the spot, but when he was doing office manager, I mean, maybe 15% of his time was there. But now, yeah, we're loaded up with a lot of lawsuits. And I feel bad about that. I hate to even call him or email him because I know the load he's carrying. When it comes to the load that Director Smells is carrying, the public perception is that's because she's doing our job. We've told you we don't want a county administrator. You say director of operations, you bet. You acknowledge that I worked as hard as anyone to get her here. I'm not sorry. However, she doesn't need to do my job, and there are some real hard feelings that have developed here. We've got to get to the bottom of that, or nothing is going to change. I'm not pointing a finger at anyone, but I am saying that somebody needs to demonstrate to me how we can justify the amount of money it takes and where we're headed, and take our eye, in my view, off the ball of having that financial person that's focused in. Okay, we have a balanced budget. Terrific. But we haven't been audited, so we don't know for sure. Do I have apprehension that it's not accurate? No. But we have to go through that process, and we're behind in that.
Can I just ask you, because you're
Sure.
on that topic of Ms. Schmelzer, you just said Ms. Schmelzer costs about $120,000 a year. What do you think a finance director is going to cost?
You just said, if I understood correctly, you don't even think it's a full-time job. I came to this board with some options. CPA companies that would look at helping Curry County, one that was retired, okay? Contract out at least for 3 or 4 months. You said you would never do that. And I'm sorry you said that because I think that was really a valid option. So what does a finance, yeah, they're expensive because they're very hard to find, okay? And yet we need the most qualified, when we're dealing with the kind of budget we're dealing with, we need the most qualified people we can find. And it needs to be somebody that's very focused to help the people that we have in that office that we all care dearly about and admire their diligence and their professionalism and their effort. But I know there's ways to save money on this, and that's why in my program I did mention your point. Is the treasurer position evolves, as we get the new person come on board, and we move forward in the post-COVID era, in the small county area, in dealing with Salem and the CARES Relief Acts that are not coming our way. All I'm asking is to hold the line, get the finances in order, and then let's look 4 months down the road, 6 months down the road, and see where we are. I don't know what we consolidated. You mentioned that. I don't see anything we consolidate. What am I missing there?
Look downstairs.
Huh?
Look downstairs at what Ms. Schmelzer consolidated.
Okay,
I'll let her
fair
speak
enough.
to that. I'll
No,
let her speak to that when she talks.
Fair enough. I wouldn't put it on the consolidation category, but I think it's noteworthy, and I'm not going to disagree with that. You know, we're spending $240,000 a year on electricity for this county. We're spending 15 or 16,000 a month on fuel for cars. We're spending 40,000 a year on water. I'm not saying those aren't good deals. I just think the public needs to be aware. We need to know if there are means to look at those. Who's taking a car home at night, okay? That may be an issue. Maybe it's not an issue. Anyone other than law enforcement. So there's my piece.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get back to the consolidation discussion here in a little bit. Thank you.
Mr. Melzer?
Well, I don't have the slides in front of me because I had printed off what was in the packet.
Please.
And of course, it's much different than what was in the packet, so that's okay because it is different. But I'll just cover a couple things, you know, kind of, I guess, random order. You know, as far as talking about combining the treasurer with the finance director and saying that's a great idea, you guys, we already talked about that. We already agreed that that conversation is happening this coming year. That's not rocket science. We already said we need to do this, okay? I think we just need to make sure that we remember to do it. When we talk about the options of having a CPA do our work, we've talked about this many times, but I just want to remind the board again. The board did run an ad for a CPA and we had no applicants. We sent it to every single CPA firm in Southwest Oregon, as well as paid good money to advertise it throughout the state, and no one responded to it. Nobody was interested. The people that actually helped create that job description were two very well-known CPA firms that are willing to help us do things like create job descriptions for that, but they weren't interested in doing the work. So I think we just need to, we've discussed it many times, it's just time to say, yeah, the board agreed. The option the route they were taking was to do a part-time finance director, part-time director of operations. And when you're talking about saving money, you know, to hear that it would save money to separate them, you know, I'm a person who does, I use a policy and program analysis tool when I look at something, and I look at the pros and the cons and the cost of it. And in my review, there was no savings by creating two separate positions. Having them as one position clearly saves money. You're paying half the PERS, you're paying half the insurance. I mean, it was just, I thought it was a good decision of the board when they unilaterally said, let's try this route. Let's run, you know, we failed with an advertisement for a finance director. We failed with an advertisement for a CPA firm. Let's try and see what happens if we combine the two and see what type of response we got. And we actually got a pretty good response. We have a second interview lined up with one of those candidates. So I think, you know, to revisit that or to propose redoing that right now, I think is a little late in the game. And sometimes we may not be happy with the decision of the board, but it is the decision of the board and we have to move forward with that. Talk a little bit about my position. You know, to hear that we need to immediately put Council Huddle in this position is a little, is interesting because I'm here until the end of December. And of course, Council Huddle is busy on all the CCH matters and legal matters. I don't understand how paying another attorney would save money on that, especially if somebody's willing to be here. So, especially for such a short time, I mean, the learning curve alone wouldn't prove to be fruitful. So I am a little concerned when I hear that. Talking about putting Summer Madison to take my duties, there's some legal concerns with that. Summer Madison is paid with state lottery dollars. We are audited. Those lottery dollars, which pay her salary, need to be spent on economic development. They're not to be spent on administrators' work or Board of Commissioner meetings or anything like that. So I have a big concern when I hear a suggestion that, hey, let's take somebody who's paid with these dollars and use them for something else, because that's a red flag to me, and that's a horrible message to send to the public that we're going to take state or federal dollars and use them for something else than they're intended for. So that's a concern, you know. With Miranda, you know, Miranda's an excellent employee. I know Miranda's probably not going to be happy with me saying this, but Miranda is one of 3 people who came to me before this presentation and said, we're concerned about our jobs. When we hear commissioners talking about cutting positions and consolidating, they're concerned. And I reminded them the board is not talking about that. This was a presentation by Commissioner Boyce, and he wants to propose some things, which some of them were great, some of them are good ideas. But Miranda has identified to me that she is interested in finding something else within the county because she is concerned. When you talk about getting rid of business license fees, that's half Miranda's salary. So when you're talking about getting rid of a fee that pays an employee's salary, you're talking about getting rid of the employee or finding money somewhere else. And I don't know where you're going to do that. So same thing with environmental health. Talking about cutting environmental health fees, we just, that program, I think offhand it takes in maybe about $200,000, doesn't quite pay for the program itself. We use general fund dollars to balance the budget in that program, I believe. So when you're cutting environmental health fees, you're saying we're going to take more out of the general fund now. I mean, you really, commissioners, I really urge you when you're looking at these to do a full analysis. You can't just cut or give a discount here or it doesn't work that way because we have to figure out how we're going to pay the bills. At the end of the day, you have to pay those bills. And as Commissioner Boyce said, we're looking at tougher times. You know, we're not going to have as much built money. So how much general fund money can you really take when you start cutting fees and giving people money back on fees? You know, talk about cutting staff or something. I mean, our staff, our bare bones staff, I think everyone realizes our staff are doing multiple jobs. Many of them are doing multiple jobs. You can't just keep cutting or they're going to walk. And I tell you what, you may get somebody to replace those positions, but they're not going to stick around long when they realize what's expected of them and in the culture or the environment that they're being put in. I think that Commissioner Boyce's idea on a consumption tax is great. I think, as a matter of fact, he proposed it a year ago. I'm surprised we haven't seen anything. I mean, it failed last year, so bring it back, you know. I think that's something that needs to keep happening. As far as a law enforcement district, great idea. I know last year Commissioner Boyce said, I'm the one who's going to work on that. Keep working at it. Keep working at it. I think the board supports that, but we haven't seen anything. 401k, great idea. Work at it. Bring something to the board. I think they'd welcome it. I think those are great ideas, and I think they need some more, some time invested in that. So, and what I'm hearing from the other members are they think those are good ideas too. So I do think anything out of this workshop, I think those are 3 good directives for Commissioner to follow up on. You know, there was a comment about looking for more revenue. We need more revenue. The board did talk about forming a citizen revenue task force again, a second one, and I know Commissioner Boyce, you objected to it. We ran the ad, and not surprisingly, nobody applied. You know, the message is out there, people. People watch the meetings. You know, applicants watch the meetings. The public is aware of what's going on, and I think most people are. Why serve on something when what you produce, all the time you invest and produce something isn't considered or it's just shot down? I mean, we have to create, I think instead of focusing on some of the stuff we're talking about today, maybe we need to focus on improving that culture so people want to serve the county. People want to come in and work for the county. Just one quick note on the job description. We don't have an adopted job description for commissioners. That is something that, you know, I know Commissioner Boyce has talked about before. I think it's a good idea. I think it's something to continue working on. But right now we do not have an approved or adopted job description for commissioners. I guess just the, you know, when we talk about utilities, the price of water, the price of electricity, that's why, was one of the reasons why we started talking about a new courthouse. You need something. Let's think long term. Let's think, how can we long term start saving these money and reducing costs? So I think that's one way of doing it. I mean, when you have old buildings, you know, you have an old parking garage or you have a terrible jail or a courthouse that's leaking like a sieve, how do you save on electricity and water bills and things of that nature? You really either need to spend millions of dollars to retrofit them, or you put that money into a new facility and you save money long term. You know, you got to remember, we're not looking just in our 4-year window. We're looking long term what we can do for the county. And that's what we need to focus on as a board, as a group. Last thing I just want to comment on is OpenGov. You know, the strategic plan talked about the need to start modernizing and become more efficient with software. Sometimes we look at software and we say it's not important because we're only seeing part of it. Or we're saying, well, we've got all these employees in there, why are we investing in this software? But when those employees are gone, are we just going to keep adding more employees? Or are we going to look at software that perhaps could be doing the job of those employees? And I think we need to look long term. We can't just look short term. Yeah, it's an investment up front, but long term, is it costing us, or is it saving us money in the long term? And I think that a good board doesn't just look at their 4-year term, but they look outside and say, what are we doing for the citizens of the county long term? And I think that it was the right decision to start investing in some software. Just with the NeoGov, I think you're going to find just in 6 months how it's saving us money. But that again is something that I think we need those numbers to prove it. And until we have that, I don't think, some people just are not going to agree with that decision. And that's, I guess, the majority of my comments on it.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Nothing that I've stated privately, publicly, or in that presentation suggested that I was going to be cutting staff or recommending cutting staff. The main reason I'm putting my neck out there on the consumption tax is so we can do our job, because I think it's a very legitimate plan, has tremendous capacities to do our job, is so that we can keep the people that we have. That's my #1 responsibility here. So I just want the public to know I'm not headhunting here, not in a second. But I'm not going to keep spending money we don't have until I see where we are. As far as environmental health fees, and we got to pay our bills, the restaurants that are getting hammered by $900 to open their doors and pass the inspection fees, they have to pay their bills. And I'm hoping and praying they're able to come back. So somebody's got to look out for the little guy. Somebody's got to look out for them. They need an advocate. I never said cut the fees. I said maybe we could look at, as a board, giving them a year with a half off or something. I don't know what the good combination would be. What would even be fair to the bigger restaurants versus the smaller cafes, etc. But they're hurting, and they need help. And so I'm worried about paying our bills, but I'm also worried about keeping them in business. As far as the thank you on the update with Summer Madison, I'm just going to speak to that. You said a horrible message to the public, Director Smelzer, that we use state funds. I wouldn't recommend that. All I'm saying is we're a small county. We pull everybody together and say, hey, you know, we got an emergency management guy. Maybe he could be doing part-time over here. Nothing in particular. I'm just pulling something out of thin air there, so we can keep everybody working and we can be as productive as possible. I'm looking at a parking lot over there. I see brand new cars. Some of them hadn't been moved for a month. And so, you know, I trust you and the effort you made on that, and I certainly agree and trust Roadmaster Christensen, but the public sees new cars, and I still don't. I'm going to challenge you to just say, hey, do a presentation on here's why and how we save the money. I'll probably believe that.
We did one.
Okay, I didn't see, okay. I don't recall that, or at least to the detail that we could say, this justifies these new cars that are sitting in the parking lot. Okay, that goes with the water bill and the electric bill and the fuel bill and all that. You know, I wanted to go with that, what was the name of the green company? Not Inglewood, but
A rental car. It was a rental car agency.
Hertz.
yeah.
Or Enterprise.
Was Enterprise, very good, thank you. It wasn't Hertz, but anyway, thank you. They would come highly recommended from Coos County and Jackson County. So I kind of got a little bit steamrolled on it. At least I felt like I did, and I think we maybe lost an opportunity there. When it comes to Jefferson County, real quick, folks, I've explained to you before. I know what's going on there. They have a guy that comes in. He's part-time. He's very effective, and he works really reasonable because he doesn't want to work full-time. He's retired, so they have a good system here. It still comes back to how can Curry County afford a director of operations that is turned into a county administrator. I don't know how else you could spin it. That's not a negative or a positive. It's just the reality of where we are. And it's back to, is it commissioners piling everything on her desk, the tremendous load she's carrying, and she ends up doing it all? I'm not putting stuff on her desk. It doesn't work that way. Director Smelzer, you mentioned late in the game. That referenced, I've been saying all along where I think this board has gone wrong. And I've failed to persuade. That's the art of politics, that's the art of legislation, being a good legislator, and I think I am. You know, I'm certainly devoted, but I haven't been able to persuade on a lot of different issues, even to the extent of taking something like OpenGov 6 months ago and saying, wait, just hold off for a little bit. Wouldn't that be the prudent thing to do till we see what's going on? You know, as far as a director of finance, I showed you guys the letter the other day from a Coos Bay firm. Said, hey, you need to talk to this person in Josephine County. She's been retired for 5 or 6 years. She's real interested. You guys shot me out of the saddle. I still don't understand. I was criticized because I wasn't the liaison. And I'm seeing a problem we have. I know people that can help, or that I thought might be able to help. They give us an option, and here it is, 2 weeks later, we've lost the window there. I don't understand. I don't understand how that would even remotely bring hard feelings. Wow. Now, she's still available, I think, but I'm only one commissioner, so I have to be extremely careful who I contact and when, and I brought it back to the board, didn't work, no interest. I'm shocked on that. As far as a commissioner job description, didn't we vote on that? On that 3 pages? Okay. You didn't think it is, that doesn't make it official?
I have it right here. It is, you brought it up under commissioner updates is what you did. It was never an action item.
Well, I'm gonna research that because we all 3 voted, is my recollection. I could be wrong, but we all 3 voted on that 2.5 pages, and it's pretty clear on what the expectations are for us as individual commissioners. So I have no doubt, but yes, again, I
don't know
could be
if
wrong.
anyone is really violating anything, though, as far as I can see.
Well, it strictly calls for working above average hours. And so, no, I don't think this board does that because they have Director of Operations Smelzer to carry a lot of that load, which you have highlighted, Mr. Chair. I understand.
You're saying I don't work enough hours?
I'm saying that we committed in that agreement that we all voted for and signed to work above average, well, here it is right here, I can bring it up again, but above average hours of what the normal county employees are required to do. So that's up to your heart, mind, and soul to tell the people how much you're working. You might be working way more than me, I don't know.
I have the job description here, the draft one, if anyone.
Can you read the
would like
first
to
paragraph, please?
The position of Curry County Commissioner is an elected full-time position and responsibility. Oh, I'm sorry. The position of County Commissioner is an elected full-time position and responsibility. The 3 commissioners are expected to work hours in excess of the normal business hours established for county employees.
I think that's just what I said. So, anyway, we're a small county and we're broke. At least if we're not, we have to assume we are. Any other approach to government, in my view, is irresponsible. And so when we say we're going to get a new courthouse or really pursue that, not a bad idea, but the interim amount of money required is, the old timers say, spend $5, save a nickel. And that's where we headed with the strategic plan, which is now potentially outdated, obsolete. We didn't know the COVID thing was coming. It's that simple. So Stay tuned, guys, because we don't know what's around the corner tomorrow. My job is to keep every person here working that I possibly can and hopefully not making any cuts. If we do some of the things that you all acknowledge, you believe is reasonably good, let's get started yesterday.
I have Mr. Barnes, complete your public comment, please.
Thank you, David Barnes, again. I'm a financial auditor and fraud investigator by trade. I would highly recommend against you combining the positions of treasurer and finance director. You have one, as Commissioner Boyce pointed out, there's no separation of duties. You have one person on both sides of the books. You're opening yourselves for fraud. A couple of other things that were just coming up here. You talked about a grant writer again and talked about the park company. Park company came in, they did an audition, they filled out a grant for us for an emergency services vehicle. They screwed it up. Okay, so as far as I would be concerned on that, they failed the audition. I can just go off of what was on the slides that I received yesterday, and one of the things on there was no more new hiring freeze. And then as you look further into it, it's a hiring freeze except for a finance director, and except for law enforcement, and except for grant writers, plural, and except for the housing director who we supposedly have that we don't have that we're going to need to get. You know, so I don't understand where the hiring freeze comes into this. You know, let's see, what else? You know, there's been nothing but strife and division around here. I'm going to cut this real short. You know, Commissioner Boyce, you came up with all these ideas and you presented all these ideas today to people, and you're challenging people to do something. I challenge you, sir, please come up with the next step to any of the things that you presented today. You want to bring back a consumption tax? Have a list of the things that are going to be included. Are you paying attention, sir?
Yes, I'm writing down.
Okay, please, you know, have a.
You don't have to worry about respect from me.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, you know, have a list of the things that you want to include in your consumption tax. Don't just say we should talk about one. If it's your idea, as I did a couple of weeks ago in here, I came to you and I complained about the signs, and I presented a solution to them, you know? It's one thing to bring up the idea, it's another thing to own that idea and to actually do the work to make it into something that you can bring to the people. You know, we're talking, you know, all these things that you've said today, you know, they're just the first step. If they're your ideas, it's on you, sir, to take them and to develop them. Not just expect somebody else to come in and do, well, I put it out there and somebody else grab the ball and do something with it. It's not the way the world works, you know? Lastly, in closing, you know, I hear a lot of talk now about, you know, more contractual services, and that's the way to go. And when I hear you say that, all I can think of is that next month you start a court case with Curry Community Health or Curry Health or whoever they were over your last contractual service. You know, this county got screwed on the last contractual service. Commissioner Boyce, you were on their board of directors, and it's happened under your watch over there. So I have a real hard time accepting the fact that you want to bring in more contractors when the last one that you were assigned to failed so miserably for us. You know, they put us in a real bind here in this county in terms of public health and in terms of finances over getting health in here. And I just, you know, I'm very disappointed by that. And it upsets me greatly to think that you want to keep us going in that direction when it failed so miserably in the past for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair.
You can respond.
Thank you. I really take exception to, because I served on the board of directors of Curry Community Health, I got off that board because we didn't have the money at the county level to go back and give them.
So I just would like to make a point of
Yes,
order. I don't
that's all
want to
I'm gonna
talk
say
about
on
the
that.
Curry Community Health matter publicly. Thank you.
And I'll tell you, when you look at, thank you, sorry, Mr. Huddle Council. When you look at the 4 years I've been here, I've come up with the ideas time and time and time and time again. And I have failed, as I said a bit ago, to persuade. So here we are, we're still here. I brought the information, I brought the ideas. The next step, the last slide, Mr. Barnes says, when we're going to talk again. Are we just going to talk, or are we going to do something? So I know your personal opinion, that's fine, but what else what else can I do except keep bringing it to the board and being defeated time after time and then being blamed? Okay, that's how it works in politics. I understand that. So, yeah, when you bring what you believe is rational legislation, good policy, and you try and present it to two other people, and you lose, yeah, it takes its toll. But I think you'd have to admit, I'd never give up. Never give up.
Sir, the thing that you have failed to do is to take the next step on all of these ideas that you've brought up. All you do is throw it out, say, I think this is a good idea, we should do something about this, and then leave it to somebody else. Case in point, 2 years ago, we sat at Commissioner Pash's house, and I asked you point blank, you presented a 19-point plan of things that you wanted to get done as a county commissioner in your first 2 years. Now you have a chance, what do you have shovel ready? And you looked at me and said, I guess I know what I'm doing for the next couple weeks, huh? And still we have nothing. You know, still we have nothing
Well,
on
I'll tell you
any
what,
of
I'll
that.
give you a little presentation on those 19 points. I'd be glad to talk
Please.
about each and every one of them in my work effort and effectiveness, what I do inside the county and out. When it comes to the consumption tax, I brought it up 3 times. Well, actually 4 times. So you're saying I'm not doing the next step?
You're
I just
not because-
respectfully
you're not-
disagree.
Sir, you're not, because the citizens, because all you put up was a sample question, should we have a consumption tax?
The whole board put that up, Mr. Barnes.
You did.
I went
Correct,
along.
you did,
I
and-
went along, okay?
And the
That's
vote
what we
was
do.
4,800 to 900. To me, the public has spoken on that, and that should be dismissed. The public has given you their opinion of it. Unless you're going to spend hundreds of hours working on this and developing something solid and concrete to present to the public, talking about consumption tax is just a waste of time at this point. The
So-
public has spoken, almost 5 to 1.
This is not a debate here, so
I
let's-
understand. Thank you.
That's,
So we had legislative revenue office that put a lot of time into it. That's hardly just some fly in the skillet program. And so no, I agree that the advisory question that went to the citizens, I'll take my responsibility, probably was not very well done. However, I think this plan is, I think the options on different plans for Curry County has so much credibility that, yeah, I will keep pursuing it. I have. And yeah, that's my job, that's my responsibility. And I think that's the best way to finance this county and be effective and keep it going. As you often say, pay our bills.
Commissioner Gold?
Could I make a suggestion? I think some of these ideas are viable, and maybe assign maybe one commissioner to look at each idea and come back and do a workshop on that idea. And like Mr. Barnes suggested, take it a step further than just an idea. Come up with something that we can actually discuss, some figures, some documentation, that sort of thing. Otherwise, we'll get nowhere.
Here's how I'll conclude. Are you next? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So the 2 things I want the public to understand, and in the interest of a little bit of emphasis here, that we have taken John Hitt and kept him in the position with what we were paying him on a contract basis. I think it was $30,000 a year, maybe 45. I don't remember, but it was a very reasonable fee. A very experienced individual. I didn't want a county administrator, but I worked really hard to build a relationship and work with him. He got sent down the road for no reason, and it cost us a couple $100,000, and I can prove that. So I wonder how it might have been different for Curry County had we have responsibly followed that procedure. 6 out of 8 elected officials said keep him. Number 2, if we'd have worked and I'd have got any kind of support, any kind of basis for assistance on a consumption tax and all the efforts, where would we be right now if we could have responsibly went before the voters and said, here's why we think this is the best thing for the property tax owners, for the schools, for the ports, for county government, for law enforcement, for not taking more out of the road fund reserves, for visitor promotion. I stand on my record, and we all are going to have to answer for our records. Thank you.
Well, again, I'll agree with Commissioner Gold on one thing. I would like to see you readdress the consumption tax, come up with a viable plan on how you would institute it, what you would tax, how you would tax it, who would be taxed, and bring that back you know, send it to us in an email, or send it to Ms. Schmelzer in an email, and she can get it to us, so that we can sit down and talk about it. I think that's something viable to bring back to the board to talk about. I want to make one more comment about the software thing. You know, yes, you did ask to delay the software, but initially you voted to approve the software. And then a couple of months down the road, once we had already started, we'd already paid them part of what was due them, and they'd already began the development of our program. At that time, then you asked to delay it. And once we'd already signed contracts, once we'd already agreed to something that I personally believe is going to be a huge plus for the county. So to say that we could have delayed it, yes, we could have. If you had voted no in the beginning, then it would have gotten delayed, of course. But once we sign those contracts, you've got a signed contract with a vendor. You've got to move forward.
May I respond, Mr.
Sure.
Chair? My recollection is clearly, we had a 30-day clause at that point. So to ask this board for an extra 60 days, 6 months, was totally legitimate and should have been considered, okay? Especially now that we know what we're dealing with COVID. So go back and do your research. I'll do mine, okay? And I will, and you know, because I voted for that, my job is not to be an obstructionist when there's only a 3-member board. My job is to come on board even when I'm slightly less than 50% in agreement, to try and help, to try and build, to try and grow together. But sometimes when this common sense doesn't take over, then yeah, I might want to change my vote. I might want to change my position. I might want to say, I got to answer those people out there that are paying every day to make this work. And so, yeah, I don't want to be an obstructionist. And the other thing is, when it comes to the consumption tax, why don't one of you take the lead on that? I've got stacks of stuff I can give you that's very legitimate. And you already showed some interest, which was a beam of good light. So quit putting everything on my desk. I've tried for 4 different times. One of you take the lead, and let's see if we got something to build on. Let's see if another workshop is program ready to go. I'll sure help.
The consumption tax is something that you came up with, that you wanted to develop. I've got several things that I'm working on right now. I'm still visiting the border crossing, or the border toll, and looking at that.
I'll do it.
All right.
If you want to give me the information, I'll be happy to do that.
Well, you have it right there. Would be the 3 main things that I.
Said you had stacks of info for.
Yes.
I like to have lots of documentation, if that's possible.
I will be glad to give it all to you.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jim Cullen, Curry County Assessor.
For the record, Mr. Colin does have a mask, and he took it off when he approached the microphone, because we're all going to get emails if I don't say that.
Oh, I thought everybody that was coming up here or was speaking was mostly taking off their mask, but thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Pash. You've had an interesting conversation this afternoon, and you know, I have some reason to be optimistic from this conversation, because one of you came with some ideas to this meeting, and then the 3 of you kicked them around, and you know, some of you agreed, or maybe all of you agreed with some of the ideas, and some of you agreed with some of them. Appreciate the fact that Commissioner Boyce isn't particularly married to any of the ideas. He's just looking to start the conversation, and maybe start some things going. I have to take a little bit of exception to my friend Mr. Barnes back there. It's been my experience when there's a board administrator relationship, that when the board decides on a course of action, they leave it up to the administrator administrator to flesh out the details and come back with the plan of action. So, I mean, that is something for you to consider.
We don't have an administrator, though.
Director of operations, whatever you want to call that. So, you know, I just hope that the three of you will continue the conversations. I think there's been a few things that there's some consensus maybe on this afternoon, and I hope you don't drop the conversation there. I mean, you're considering Commissioner Boyce's ideas today. Commissioner Pash, I know that you've brought some ideas to the Board of Commissioners at other times. So, boy, keep the conversation going.
Thank you. And to that point, the things that I brought to the Board of Commissioners have been voted down too.
Yes, but I told you you had courage. More times than once. Would you acknowledge that?
Yes.
And that was a compliment. It wasn't some backhanded deal. It was a compliment. So I have one more thing.
Yes.
Do you have some?
Go ahead,
Well, after you.
You know, just at the corporate level, when somebody resigns, which Ms. Melzer resigned in April, and now I hear that she's going to be here till December. Now I've heard rumors of that. I'm trying to understand how you build around that and how you have a transition. That's why I went back to the proof in the pudding, what worked, and I'm not speaking for Council Huddle, but I thought, okay, you know, if he spends 15-20% of his time in the back office, it worked before. So, and it gets back to, no offense, what we can afford. We have 3 highly paid commissioners and all the above, and so I'm just baffled by that. But I'm also a minority commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
All right.
Well, I just real quick on that note, so we've talked several times in executive session about my schedule, so I'll just leave that one alone. But I know Commissioner Boyce made a comment about how I shouldn't be doing work for commissioners, but Assessor Colin did bring up a good point. You know, if you want to do something, staff is here to help. I did write all the language for the last consumption tax proposal that was before us about a month ago that was pulled. And Commissioner Gold, I'll give you all the documentation and records I have on that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? This meeting is adjourned.